now!
Hello, this is Billy Core from Carolina Circle Mall. Merry Christmas once again. And welcome to a new feature for Nostalgic Christmas this year. I've noticed that for the past couple of years, Nostalgia Christmas has mainly consisted of Let's Plays. Not that there's anything wrong with those. Those are good videos to make, but you have to admit they do get kind of boring after a while. So I decided to, in a way to help break up the monotony of some of these videos, to try something different by showing some old Christmas catalogs from the 80s and 90s. For those who don't know, there's this awesome website called wishbookweb.com that has entire scans of many old Christmas catalogs dating back to, I believe, the 30s. And it's a really fun website to look at, and we're going to be using that website quite a bit this year for my videos. And the first catalog we're going to look at this year is the Great American Sears Wishbook from 1989. This is going to be interesting because 1989 was the year I was born, and Christmas, I was not even a month old that year. Excuse me. So, we're not going to look at the entire catalog. Instead, what I have done is, the other day I looked through the entire catalog off camera and wrote down some notes on some particular pages I want to look at. So, we'll just take a look at those pages, and let's see if I can just type it in here to the first page I want to look at, which I believe is page 134. And there we go. And I wanted to show this because, well, I love 80s looking clothes, and this definitely looks pretty 80s. Yeah, those sweaters. I actually do remember people wearing stuff like that back in the early 90s, and I gotta say, that is a very cool look to have. So we'll go to the next page, I believe. And more 80s looking sweaters there. I just imagine some stereotypical 80s sitcom father wearing that, can't you? In fact, there he is right there playing with a dog. Okay, let's head to page 154. So I figured out how to do this. 154, and what do we have here? More 80s clothing. I remember my mom wearing colors like this in the early 90s. Hopefully you can see my cursor, by the way, so you'll know what I'm pointing at. Okay, now we need to head to page 187. And I mainly want to show this because 80s Nintendo, you can't go wrong with that. Nintendo Power. I got the power! Excuse me, I think I had a frog in my throat. Ha! Okay. Enough silliness there. So yeah, did any of you kids that were around in 1989 wear stuff like this? Say so in the comments. I'm curious to see. Okay, 268. We're skipping ahead a bit. And we're now in the toy section, which, let's be honest, if you were a kid growing up back then and getting these catalogs in the mail, this is what you were going to be looking at. And I figured for the women in the audience, I might as well show a few of the doll pages, and this is one of them. And I gotta say, I may be a boy, but I would have loved to have had that Burger King set right there, because I love miniature versions of big things. Hold on, gotta take a sip of my drink. That's some good ginger ale. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Creepy time over. Now we need to move on to page 272. And more girl stuff here. Again, for the women out there watching, this is for you. Pretty 80s looking girl right there. And a pretty princess. Alright, enough of that. 309. Page 309. And again, I love miniature versions of big things. And this page has a lot of them. In fact, one thing I want to point out is this Happy Meal set right here. I actually have this. I bought it at an antique store back in, I believe, 2006. It's a part of my vintage toy collection. It's this, it's missing a few pieces. I don't have the drink, and I don't have the hamburger, and I don't have the apple pie, but I do have the box and the fries. So I should probably see if I can find a full set of that someday. Because, you know, this may have been 89, but I do remember McDonald's packaging looking like this in like the early 90s. So I gotta say, I do love old school McDonald's. I miss when they looked like that. And yeah. Okay, we need to head to the next page, I believe. And this here I'm showing because this Fisher-Price farm set is a toy we had in the nursery at church when I was a little kid, and I remember playing with this quite a bit. And anything else here I want to show? I believe not. So we need to head to page 317. By the way, I will put a link in the description to where you can see the full version of this. And main reason I'm showing this is just to take a look at this Play School flashlight here. I had one of these growing up. For those who don't remember, it was a toy flashlight that actually worked, but it had certain filters you could set on it. So you could have the light shine red or green, which was really, really cool. And I forgot to plug my headphones in. I will take care of that right now. There we go. Okay, now on to page 344. And I love how these old catalogs from back in the day would always have pages for sleeping bags. I never remembered sleeping bags being this popular back in the day, but then again, I really didn't travel much as a kid. In fact, I still don't travel much. And of course, you got your Super Mario Brothers sleeping bag there, along with Police Academy, which was pretty popular back in the 1980s, along with the California Raisins. You know, remember the claymation commercials with the California Raisins? I don't, because I wasn't born yet. Okay, need to head to the next page. And I'm mainly showing this because I absolutely love that Garfield tent. I would love to have that. Well, I don't think I'd really fit in it anymore, though. And I got something similar to this Sesame Street tent back in Christmas of 1991. I think it was a little bit different from this, but it was the same idea. Okay, 352. And I'm showing this because a bed made out of a shoe. What an incredible concept! And we also have a real-life cherry from Pee-wee's Playhouse. My Pee-wee Herman impression is not very good, I've got to admit. Okay, 360. We're off to page 360. Alright, now we're getting into something kind of interesting here. Some old electronic games for kids. The old Speak and Spells. Something called a Socrates. It turns any TV into a learning and fun center. Over 90 built-in programs with 6 different levels that help teach your child math, spelling, music, and art. TV not included. Well, screw that. If it's not coming with a TV, forget it. Okay, 362. Got more electronic games, including this thing that looks almost like an old Tandy TRS-80. Only at Sears. Talking Computron. Voice-activated computer interacts with your child to teach him spelling, math, music, and the alphabet. It also has 19 different fun-filled activities and solves over 47,000 different problems. Oh, well, 47,000 different problems. Can it solve our trouble with Congress? I didn't think so. Okay, page 368. And I've got to show these off, of course. Books on tape for kids. I had a whole bunch of those. I believe these are the Disney editions. And the, oh, what were these called? Special sound effects bring these stories to life. As your child reads through the book, they press the button that corresponds with the picture or sound effect. I had a bunch of these growing up. In fact, I still have one. I believe I did a video about it a couple of years ago. It was the 101 Dalmatians version. And I got to show off these gumball machines. I'm actually in the market for an old-fashioned looking gumball machine like this to keep out here in my office, mainly just for display purposes. And back in the day when you could fit a telephone into anything, this is a gumball machine with a built-in telephone. Yes, folks, that existed. One moment. Alright, we need to skip ahead to 394. And check out these old audio doodads for children. I used to have something like this, if not similar, as a child. The Fisher-Price tape recorder. I'm actually in the market for one of those as well, just mainly to make a video of. And what's this? A Sony compact disc player for kids. Oh, that couldn't have been cheap. Oh, it wasn't. $189. Adjusted for inflation in 2017, that would be, well, too much for a child. Okay, now we need to head over to, well, scroll down on my other computer here, 398. I had a few of these as a kid growing up, although they were a little bit smaller, home pinball machines. Those were very, very cool to have. I even had a pool table growing up. I got it for Christmas, and I think 1997, I want to say. Didn't get a lot of use, though. I could never figure out how to play pool. Okay, now page 404. By the way, pause anytime you want to take a closer look at this stuff. And right here we have some children's board games, including the board game for Nickelodeon's Finders Keepers game show that was popular back in the late 80s. A lot of these I've never heard of. We got some Sesame Street games, actually. Okay, let's move over to the next page. Did not know that Crossfire was around in 1989. I didn't think they came around until like 92 or so, but learn something new every day. And you even had a Double Dare board game, the popular game show on Nickelodeon from the late 80s, early 90s. Love that show a whole lot. Okay, now we need to head over to next page again. And some more board games. Pause if you want to read more. Alright, page 412. And, oh boy, Tiger Handheld Electronic Games. The bottom of the barrel when it came to on-the-go gaming. Although, to be fair, in 1989, the Game Boy had just come out that year, so I'm sure it was quite an expensive item to have. So these were probably all you could get back then. Let's see, you had Karate King, Castlevania, Simon's Quest, Gauntlet, Double Dragon, You Call the Plays, Quarterback, Jordan Bird, Sun Wars, Pinball, and a few other little games there. Okay, now we need to head to the next page. Alright, now we're getting into some cool stuff here. Here's the Nintendo Entertainment System when it was still the most powerful and current gaming console that Nintendo had available. I believe this was the same year the Sega Genesis came out in America, so it was starting to get competition that year. So, enter the world of Nintendo. Hardware and accessories are high-impact plastic, imported, and for ages 8 years and up. All accessories are Nintendo compatible. And of course you got the projection screen right there with Duck Hunt. And what's this right here? Freedom Connection. Turns any wired Nintendo compatible joystick into a remote control joystick, giving you the freedom to improve your play. So basically, I guess you could plug a controller into that and you could play it wirelessly. That's pretty cool. And save this catalog, order most toys through August 31st, 1990. And we've also got an organizer for cartridges there. Okay, next page. More Nintendo right here. You've got the U-Force, the NES Max. If I still had a Nintendo, I would probably get one of those just so I could have that turbo functionality. And over here you got some games that were around in '89, like DuckTales, Bugs Bunny's Crazy Castle, and Airwolf. Next page, more games here. Again, pause this if you want to read more on these. That's advertising Super Mario Brothers 2, but that picture is actually the first one, unless that's the Lost Levels from Japan. But that is definitely not Super Mario Brothers 2. Marble Madness, Mickey Mousecapade, Simon's Quest. A lot of good stuff here. And speaking of the Genesis, here it is. This was when the Genesis first came out in America. As a matter of fact, there wasn't even such a thing as Sonic yet. That wouldn't come around for another 2 years. So yeah, in fact, the pack-in game at the time was Altered Beast, which is still a good game. And so yeah, I'm sure in 1989, having 16-bit power was pretty cool, yet probably hard to come by. Bet you've even got the power base converter there to play Sega Master System games on it. Okay, next page I need is right over here. Got the Sega Master System, the 8-bit predecessor to the Genesis. Again, pause if you want to read more. It's a cool looking joystick, I have to say. Alright, next page. Atari 7800, which for the time was kind of underpowered compared to even the NES, if you want my opinion. Wait, how much was the Genesis, by the way? Only $100. Well, that was the Master System. Sorry, forget what I just said. The Genesis was almost $200. Adjusted for inflation, too much. And we've got the Atari XE computer system here. Always loved how the cartridge went in kind of diagonally. Very cool look to that. An Atari 2600. They were still selling that in '89, and it was for a very low price of $40. That was actually pretty good. Although this looks like a much later model from what I'm used to seeing for the 2600. Alright, now we need to skip ahead to page 458. And we got some more toys. Hot Wheels. I always loved Hot Wheels growing up. What boy didn't? That is a cool car wash right there, I've got to say. Modern multi-parking gas. Well, I've lowered myself to fart jokes for the sake of my channel. This will probably be my last video, folks. Okay, now I need to go to 482. And I'm showing this because this thing right here I had as a child. I believe I got it in the early part of 1993. I had a lot of fun with it. It's an all-in-one play center from Little Tykes. It has a 52-inch slide, climbing cutouts, tunnel holes, and tough wear-proof double-wall construction. And I also had this Fisher-Price picnic table that I actually used inside the house because I was a weirdo. Okay, now I need to go to page 486. No reference to the processor there. The Little Tykes Cozy Coupe. I got one of those for my birthday in 1991, and I drove that thing forever. I drove it until I was probably 7 or 8. So much fun with it. I think I even had the gas pump. And right above this is something else I had. The Little Tykes Tractor. I got that in, I believe, late 93, early 94. And I had a lot of fun with that until a couple years later we left it at my grandmother's house in Winston-Salem for some reason, but that was okay because she had a huge basement, and I loved driving that tractor through that basement. And right above this here, the garden cart with tools would attach to the tractor, and I always wanted one of these. I was desperate for one of these back in the early part of 1994. My dad and I went to every toy store in Greensboro and Winston-Salem. Nobody had them. And I never got to experience having that, which was too bad. Okay, 498. I'm showing this because this tricycle right here was either similar or the same to what I had as a little kid. Used to drive that all through the house. And now we need to go to page 514. A gun rack? What will I do with a gun rack? Get the net! Wayne's World reference there, for those who didn't catch that. Okay, 522. This slot machine right here, I used to have a whole bunch of these growing up, although they were a lot smaller than this, and not as fancy either. My grandmother used to collect these quite a bit, actually. And I can tell you, the ones I had and the ones she had were definitely not worth almost $300. Okay, now we need to skip all the way over to page 614. And we get to look at some old school telephones here. This one right here with the big gray numbers, or the big gray buttons, I should say. My aunt used to have one of those at her house back in the day, and I wouldn't be surprised if she still has it, actually. I will have to check that next time I'm there. And, of course, back in the late 80s, early 90s, everyone had a see-through telephone. I didn't, but I knew a lot of people that did. And an Alf telephone. And a Garfield telephone, which I've always wanted. Those are pretty popular. I wouldn't mind having one of those. Alright, next page. More telephones, cordless telephones. This was when cordless telephones were first becoming a thing. In fact, this AT&T model we actually had when I was a kid. This exact same one, actually. I think we used it for quite a few years. I think it eventually quit working, I guess, in the early 2000s, I want to say, so we had to throw it away, unfortunately. Okay, head over to 620. Oop. Oh yeah, now we're into the computer section. On the left right here is a Commodore 64C, the slightly updated version of the classic Commodore 64. This one sold for $160 or $10 a month if you wanted to finance. And 64K RAM of memory can hold up to 27 double-spaced typewritten pages. 16 color capability reproduces games with close to arcade quality. 40-column, 25-line display, 66-character keyboard includes 4 programmable function keys with built-in Microsoft Pet Basic Language. You know, if I was to get a computer from the 80s, it would probably be a Commodore 64 of some type. Probably the original breadbox version, but yeah, the Commodore 64 just seems like a cool computer. And on the right here, we've got the Commodore Amiga 500, retailed for $600. Here's a computer versatile enough for the entire family. Its high-resolution graphics and 4096 color palette makes it perfect for desktop publishing, video production, and arcade games. Create special effects, 3D animation, white fade, and dissolve. Powerful 6800 microprocessor runs software at 7.16 MHz, 512K of RAM that's expandable to 1 MB, built-in 3.5-inch disk drive and speech software. RAM expansion and bus expansion ports includes keyboard, mouse, workbench, and Amiga Basic software. And yeah, Amigas are really cool. They really weren't that popular over here in the US like they were over in Europe. But if I was to have the chance to get one, I'd definitely take it. Okay. Now we need to head over to 622. And we've got a Laser Turbo XT IBM compatible. And if you run programs that require high-resolution graphics, the Magnavox EGA, oh, that's for the monitor, but that's a Magnavox EGA monitor right there. Ooh, look, an old hard drive. 20 megabyte internal disk drive. $300 for 20 megabytes of space. And of course, this was back when people just booted their computer from floppy disks, so having a hard drive back then was still quite a luxury. And over here we have a Laser 128, a IBM compatible Laser Compact XT. Now that is, I did not know they made IBM compatibles that small back in the day. That is pretty cool. If I had to guess, it's probably something like one of the old portable Tandy 1000s from back in the day. But yeah, I wouldn't mind playing around with one of those. Okay, now off to the next page. Got some old laptops from Bondwell. I believe these were the troublesome laptops that VUS Life made a video about a few years ago, where they would have this horrible sounding alarm that could be triggered. And this one's pretty cool because it's showing it running the Prodigy online service, which was probably still a pretty new concept in '89. And an Okidata wide carriage printer. Looks to be dot matrix, of course. And one moment, I just got a text message. Okay, sorry about that, but I'm back now. Here's a page with some software. And I just got another text message. Hold on. Sorry again, but here's some old software here. Turn your computer into the center of activity. Our wide selection of software has something for every member of your family. Make learning fun for your preschoolers or make learning new skills easy for yourself. We have the programs to entertain thrill seekers, mysteries, adventures, and lots of action. The sports fans in your house will delight in the variety of programs available. Plus, we have the most popular TV game shows. And if that isn't enough, our software is competitively priced. Our prices are almost too good to be true, and in fact are only in effect until January 15th, 1990. They've even got GEOS 2.0. I believe that was a GUI for the Commodore 64 and similar systems. Got maybe speaking up here. Easy to learn DOS. So yeah, again, if you want to pause this to get another better look at this, go right ahead. Alright, now I need to head to page 642. Some old portable tape players. Always loved playing with these. I didn't get my first one, though, until Easter of 1995. We even got Walkmans, a colorful AM/FM player in what I like to call 80s pink. Auto reverse, all kinds of cool stuff here. And even an AC adapter. Alright, next page. Some old boom boxes. I remember boom boxes like this one right here. It was back in the day, you would carry them on your shoulder and walk down the street blasting your music. Okay, now for 650, we need to head over to 650. Some giant stereo units covered in wood grain, so Lazy Game Reviews approved, I must say. And that is some fancy looking equipment. We've never had anything like that before. Alright, 656. Some old projection screen TVs back when people thought that these were a good idea. Of course, there wasn't anything better than this at the time. But looking back, you have to realize that they really didn't have that good of a picture. They were faint and blurry from what I remember. But back then, they were the thing to have. Of course, back then they were called big screens. And of course, this was back when you could still get console TVs full of wood grain. I believe we had a TV similar to this Zenith right here. Okay. Head over to this page right here. Some old VHS tapes. I think Beta had pretty much gone away by this point, for mainstream use at least. Flintstone Saves Christmas, very good Christmas special, I have to say. Yogi Bear's First Christmas, also really good, which I plan to watch both of those this year. And the greatest movie of all time, Back to the Future. Love you! Okay, 674. Some old VCRs, VHS of course. I remember VCR menus looking like that. Amplified speakers there for you. Get to 678. Now this is cool. Basically, this was a device where you could plug your camera or VCR up to it, and you could take freeze frames from the video feed and print them as a photo. And the video printer lets you use your camcorder for snapshots. And yeah, that was a really cool thing to have back then, although as you can see it was very, very expensive, $1,000. I actually remember seeing either one of these or something very similar for sale at a antique store in Burlington about 10 years ago, I want to say. So yeah, pretty cool thing to have back then. Okay, next page. Oh yeah, camcorders, back when they were ginormous, unless you had a Sony Handycam like this one. We had a camcorder like this one, this RCA. It's RCA Pro Edit. We used that camcorder from 1990 to 1996, and it produced very, very good video. Okay, and I believe that's it. Hope this video wasn't too lackluster and boring, but I do hope you enjoyed it. I do plan to make more catalog videos this year for Nostalgic Christmas, so until next time, this is Billy Core, signing off. Thank you for watching my video. If you liked what you saw, please like, subscribe, and follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The addresses are located at the bottom. Until next time, this is Billy Core wishing you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.